The UAE Anti-Money Laundering and Counter-Financing Terrorism 2026 compliance roadmap is set, and it's going to be a transformative year for UAE financial institutions. The UAE is in the midst of a significant shift in its AML and CTF framework. This is really part of the national strategy, the 2024 to 2027 strategy. It's being driven by three main factors at the moment. Those factors really are at the top of the roadmap. Number one, the FATF fifth round mutual evaluation. Number two, the federal decree law, the 10/2025, and the executive regulations. And number three, the enhanced guidelines for DNFBPs, so those designated non-financial businesses and professions. When we're talking about the FATF fifth round mutual evaluation, the UAE is undergoing that evaluation in 2026. So unlike previous rounds, this assessment is effectiveness focused, meaning it's looking at real world results, not just whether or not you have policies and procedures and things documented on paper. Now, banks and DNFBPs will need to demonstrate measurable outcomes in detecting, in preventing, and reporting any of those types of suspicious activities that flow through the financial system or through other types of payments. The second item there was around the federal decree law, 10/2025, and those executive regulations. So effective back in October of 2025, this law updated that AML and CTF framework. It basically, broadens the scope of what predicate offences are. It strengthens some of the supervisory powers, and it raises some of the penalties also for institutions. Now, it also brings, for the first time, virtual asset service providers, so VASPs, explicitly under the regulation. And, the expectations, I would say, are probably higher for those banks and DNFBPs in terms of the controls, the governance and the reporting than what we've seen in the past. But let me sort of break that down a little bit for you. Let me give you some examples about what does that mean. The first thing I would say is thinking about those risk-based frameworks. One, they've got to be documented, they've got to be tested, and they really have to be proven effective. There's no longer any room, I'd say, for negotiation when it comes to sort of beneficial ownership, transparency, some of those complex structures, bearer shares, nominee arrangements, all of that is going to be scrutinised going forward, so that's something to prepare for. A third area, as an example around here, is transaction monitoring. What they're really looking for here is for it to be real time and to be sophisticated. This means, taking a good look at any of those manual processes, batch processes, the setups that you have in place, and really seeing what you can do to bring that into the real-time sophistication world. That may actually mean a technology change for you. Another area, example to highlight here is around STR quality. The quality of an STR matters more than the volume that you're reporting every year. Now, the FIUs are really asking questions around these points, like, are these reports actionable? Do they reflect the genuine risk? Are you putting in enough information that they can actually sit there and connect the dots and track through down on criminal behavior and actions? One other sort of technology point, in addition to what we're seeing around having better technology for transaction monitoring, is around the data analytics. A lot of these sort of things, that they're not going to say it's an optional for you to have good technology or good analytics anymore. Regulators are expecting a good level of maturity here. So they are saying leverage AI, leverage machine learning, leverage advanced analytics, and stay ahead of what you can when it comes to financial crime. The last 2 points I'll make in here is examples of how this can come to life. I'll focus maybe one of those ones on VASPs. So obviously they're now explicitly in scope in this particular regulation. And if you haven't prepared for anything around the travel rule in the past, or anything around real-time sanction screening for your sanctions, your PEPs, any of your watch lists there, you will be exposed. Obviously the travel rule has been around for a while in different forms, so we all know how to include certain pieces of data into what goes onto that transaction. So please be prepared for that. And the last sort of example I'll give you is around the DNFBPs. So thinking about those high risk sectors like real estate, gold, precious metal, lawyers, accountants, they're going to have a bit more of an intensive supervision focus on them coming into, these regulations. And in particular, we're going to see everybody have to, be registered on Go AML as being sort of the mandatory, system to be able to file things like your STRs, and that sort of enforcement is going to start coming on board. So if you're in that category and you have not actually registered for it, register for it. Start getting familiar with the format and the level of information that you need to be able to provide. Now, speaking of DNFBPs, that third item that I mentioned is really around sort of we're seeing enhanced guidelines overall as part of this compliance roadmap for 2026 for the DNFBPs. So the Ministry of Economy has released the upgraded guidelines that they're expecting at the moment, and these guidelines really do require similar things to what you see in a bank. So robust risk assessments, governance structures in place, transaction monitoring, STR reporting, everything going through Go AML. They looking at the record retention periods. How do you sit there and do analytics? So this is sort of really, in my eyes, almost raising the bar for the DNFBPs, and it looks like they are looking to hold them to the same standards that we have been seeing and what we're expecting from the regular sort of banking, insurance, and fintech environment. I'd say there's probably about maybe 5 things here. 1, evaluate your current position. Perform a gap analysis against what the requirements are. Operationalize your risk assessments, your controls. Document what you can, but just make sure that whatever you are doing is producing those actionable results. Remember that effectiveness side of things, and also keep your board, your senior management team on board as part of the process, but also as part of what the solution is developing out like. The second sort of practical tip you can do here is around prioritizing the technology and your expertise. Think about AI-driven monitoring, those advanced analytics. Do you have all the right kind of experienced compliance team members in place? Looking at your transaction monitoring and your reporting, side of things. How are you going to do that real-time capability? Have you already been in touch with your vendor? Are you able to code that internally? How do you plan to reduce some of that manual, processes that you have in place, spreadsheets, anything else, batch processes that are running, perhaps overnight or once a week. But just also, again, take a really good look at that STR and SAR submission channels. Make sure you've got sufficient evidence really to show that effectiveness all around within your technology and your expertise in those particular areas. Thirdly, I'd probably say engage with your regulators, show them that you're committed, throughout doing proactive engagement, and just be really clear, transparent with how you're actually moving through with things. I would also just say, make sure you're keeping your documentation, in check. Make sure it's an effectiveness-focused evaluation. It's really critical to have that side of things: risk assessment, the monitoring controls, the training, the explainability of the AI, the governance controls, all in place to actually support how you're achieving those particular effectiveness ratings. And lastly, really just focus on a compliance-first culture. Sounds really easy. Sometimes it can be hard to put into practice, but compliance isn't just a department of just compliance. It requires enterprise level, sort of board level ownership across the board. Everybody needs to be a part of how we sit there and control, manage, and look at financial crime as a whole. But listen, in short, this is all about moving from almost like a checklist approach to being a proactive, results-focused, effectiveness, demonstrated AML program and technologies. So if you do have questions, please let us know. We'd be happy to have a conversation.